Taiwan has one of the world's largest distant water fishing fleets, with tens of thousands of people working on these boats to catch valuable seafood. But Taiwan caught fish was put on the U.S. Department of Labor's dirty list due to concern over labor abuses among its migrant fishermen. Now, the American Institute in Taiwan is working with Taiwan on improving working conditions for migrant fishermen. And here to talk with us about this today is AIT Political Officer Jason Hwang. Thank you for joining me, Jason.
Thank you, Natalie. I really appreciate the opportunity to come and talk with you about this important issue today.
I mean, I do know that because I have covered human trafficking in Taiwan, that Taiwan is one of the few countries in Asia, actually, I think only two, who have a Tier 1 status in the U.S. State Department's Trafficking in Persons report, meaning they, meet the minimum requirements of fighting human trafficking. And I know that we've been trying to protect the rights of migrant workers within Taiwan, but it seems like fishermen, because they are out in the deep waters where people cannot be seen and monitored and contacted, are especially vulnerable. Can you tell us about some of the common abuses that people are concerned about and that happen out in the deep sea?
Our research has found that some migrant fishermen on board Taiwan-flagged vessels in the distant waters fishing fleet are subjected to long working hours, poor living and working conditions, a lack of appropriate safety and occupational health and safety measures, as well as in some cases facing exploitation from labor brokers or others that cause them to either not be properly compensated, not be paid the wages that they were promised in the contracts that they signed, or face excessive deposits or other withholdings that could amount to debt bondage. In the United States, we also have similar problems. We have problems dealing with a variety of trafficking in persons issues, but unfortunately, our fishing fleet also faces some similar challenges. So I want to emphasize that the Tier 1 ranking does not mean the absence of a problem. It does mean that the government is meeting the minimum standards as outlined in U.S. law under the Trafficking Victims Protection Act. But like the U.S., Taiwan has some serious problems that it needs to address, and we are working in partnership with the authorities here to deal with those issues.
So have there been any specific changes in the past few years to help protect these fishermen?
Yes, just a few years ago, we saw Taiwan institute a very first set of minimum standards for working conditions aboard Taiwan-flagged distant waters fishing fleets that instituted for the first time some minimum wages, some basic labor protections, etc. So that is certainly a step in the right direction. We also have seen over the last few years a tremendous response from Taiwan civil society, particularly in the wake of the 2019 collapse of that bridge at Nanfangao that led to the deaths of several migrant fishermen on board their vessels. There has been tremendous attention from civil society organizations, from the press, and from the Taiwan public, and a renewed commitment to addressing the kind of vulnerabilities of these migrant laborers to abuse and or just poor living conditions. I think the more that people know, the more that they're able to demand a fair and equitable treatment for these workers.
So what can a migrant fisherman do if he's out in the deep waters and he's being abused? Who is he to turn to?
This is one of the structural vulnerabilities that I talked about. The reality is that some of these fishing ships may leave port and not return for 2 years. Whether it is the case of a captain who may have a health condition or a single worker who may want to go home, or a case of more serious abuse or physical violence, the reality is that these ships operate at a long distance from any authority for a great length of time. And so we certainly understand that sometimes it is hard for these victims to find a way to appropriately and in a timely manner make their grievances known. So I think we are looking to the authorities here in Taiwan at a minimum to ensure that when these ships do return to port, and these individuals have the opportunity to walk away from the situation, that any allegations that they may make are seriously considered and that they are appropriately screened for indicators of forced labor or other types of human trafficking.
Jason, thank you so much for letting us know how the U.S. is working with Taiwan on this very important issue. I've been speaking with AIT Political Officer Jason Hwang about the issue of migrant fishermen and their rights here in Taiwan.